Today we're going to look at the MC28 SA from Zenith Firearms. It is made by Girsan and imported by Zenith. Now, this is a very interesting pistol, but I want to start off with the box. This is a very unique box, and let's go ahead and open it up and take a look inside at what you get. So once you open up the box, you can see here that it opens up and you get a host of things. So here you have your manual, and then of course your pistol, spare magazine, magazine loader. You get a bottle of oil. Now this stuff, it actually smells like the CLP that we had in the military, but then you get a little cloth that I did use to do an initial wipe down with this pistol. You get a lock. You get a metal punch. It looks like a golfing tee, and I don't know, maybe you could shave this out, make it a little more concave, and use it as one. But this is going to become very handy when you go to change out your back straps, and I'll get to that in a second. But then you have a little patch pusher right here. Slip it through, push it through, and yeah, pretty simple. Little polymer, flexible polymer push right there. Little patch punch, if you will. And then you have a very soft nylon brush that I did use at first. Now these things are kind of interesting, but I think this one is useful, but then you get a bronze brush, which I tried to use, but this thing just did not work very well. Running it through a 4 1/4 inch barrel, it was getting caught when I was trying to pull it back through, so it was really tough to use. So yeah, probably on the SAC model, the compact model, where it has under 4 inches of barrel length, I would say this would probably be useful, but not really. Maybe in my smaller guns. And as you can see, you get another magazine. This is the third magazine. You got another one in the gun, and then you get 2 separate back straps. Now it comes with the medium on, which is very clearly spelled out here. Can't miss it. And a large. You get these, and we'll talk about that a little later, but you get these 2, and then you get this thing right here. So if you're carrying the pistol or whatever, you have 20 holes, perhaps carrying 20 rounds of hollow points, or give or take. These are only 15 round magazines, so you know, maybe you can get the other magazines that are compatible with this pistol, which we'll discuss in a second, and put your carry rounds in there when you're taking it out to the range to shoot. Now for the manual, as you can see here, it's relatively thin, but it has nice pictures and explains how to clean it, lubricate it, and so on and so forth. And it gives you little diagrams here for the different types of firearms, and I think they're very well made. Little exploded diagrams with the nomenclatures. So yeah, I like it. Okay, now that you've seen everything that's in the box, let's go ahead and get into the firearm itself. Now, obviously, the MC28 is basically an M&P clone, but here's the thing about Girsan. Girsan is very good at, and really they base themselves off of taking these very popular designs, like their first one, which was based off the Beretta 92 SF, or FS, and they reverse engineered it, and basically kept all the important parts, but basically upgraded certain parts and make them more durable or whatever, suit their needs. And this is no different. They, as you can see, the obvious thing is they altered the grip, they altered the slide a little bit, and the trigger is very different. So also you don't have the ambidextrous qualities like the slide stop, but you do have cutouts for manual safety. And I believe there is a model in Turkey that actually has a safety on it, but I haven't seen any imported or any reviews done on it. But pretty much everything is the same. It's just not an ambidextrous. It's got a different grip, different back straps, and we'll get into that next. But really, almost everything's the same in the basic design. But we're going to go over everything in little minute details. So first thing I want to cover is the grip itself. Now, as you can see here, unlike the M&P, this does have texturing on it, but the thing about this texturing is it's very rounded, it's very smooth, and and not smooth in a way that is going to slip out of your hand like the M&P, but smooth as in that it grabs on your hand and it's very easy to hold on to, but it doesn't hurt you. It's not very aggressive at all, but it definitely works like a charm. And I really like that. Now, as far as the back straps go, let me go ahead and get out the punch and show you what you're looking at as far as changing out these back straps. So with this little pin that you're given, it looks like a golf tee, and you just push out this all the way through, and it's actually pretty tough. It's very tightly fit. So let me see if I can do this here. Oh, it went a lot easier than last time. Okay, so once that's done, I basically just take my fingernail and try to run it through the side here and just peel it off. And as you can see here, it's very malleable, but I put on the small one, Girsan, and there you go, small. And the thing about this back strap, unlike the M&P ones, is this is very malleable. I mean, look at that. Very malleable. And it doesn't need to be tough. It's just a back strap. It flips, it secures onto the back of the grip, and it's held in by a pin. And this little piece goes right in here. Little note, you may have to shave off a little bit of material, because I had to take my knife and cut away some material here. I don't know if you can see those little whittle marks on the side, but yeah, I did have to cut away a little bit of material. No big deal, but that's just something you may have to do, because they didn't put much effort, it seems, in when they were molding this stuff, but you make sure it fits nice and tight under there, and then you just roll it in, and there you go. Now I'm just going to try to push in the little pin right here with my finger, and there we go. It gets easier every time, I guess. So, little note, and then boop, and we're good to go. So yeah, it's very interesting, and you may have a little bit hanging out there, and it may give you a little bit of trouble, but again, use a knife and cut away that excess. Not too much, of course. You don't want it to look ugly, but that may be a consideration. Now, while we're on the subject of back straps, if you look here, there are some differences. This thing is flat on the sides right here, right? And it has the same texturing on the others, but look at this hump. Look at this hump on the sides. And you can basically tell just by looking at them, the small, the medium, and the large. And of course the large has the extra piece right here. But yeah, that's the differences. That's really how to tell the differences. It's very interesting how they did that. But yeah, I think it's a very good backstrap system. It's very simple, but you do have to be a little careful when you're installing them and make sure that the material is not excessive. Like on this one, it's not exactly square, so you might have to cut off the sides there when you're slipping it in. And this one looks a lot better. That's how it's supposed to look, not this. Now that we've talked about the grip, let's talk about what goes in the grip, and that would be the magazines. Now, these are 15-shot magazines. I know a lot of people are going to be like, why am I getting a pistol that is at the same height as an M&P, and I'm only getting 15 rounds? Who the heck does that? Well, here's the interesting thing. If you're really upset about that, the MC28s take the Metgar CC75 magazines. I would go with the, I think they have 18-round magazines for the CC75, and they are completely compatible. Zenith confirmed this, and that's really exciting because you have options. No, it doesn't take M&P magazines. They won't even fit. These ones are actually thinner than M&P magazines, and they are not backwards compatible with M&Ps. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the pistol construction overall. Now, you can see obvious differences between the pistol. Of course, I mentioned the grip. I mentioned the trigger, the magazine release, and of course the slide serrations are different, but the material is different too, and also the sights. But here's the thing. This is from what I'm told, it's basically a carbon steel. I'm guessing 4140 or 4150. And it's not stainless steel like the M&P, and it's not a stainless steel barrel. This is carbon steel, probably 4150 as well. This is, it feels pretty hefty, but it's not much different in weight than the M&P. And of course, this is, they say it's parkerized, and then they Cerakote it. This Cerakote job is awesome. They did a great job on this. This does not wear much at all, and I have not been shy about mistreating this pistol, and the finish is holding up very well. But you can see here a little bit of the Cerakote writing, and you'll see the underside of the slide right there when I disassemble it. And of course your serrations are a little bit different, but here's the thing, they're sharp, but the Cerakote makes it feel slightly slick. But you know, once it wears down a little bit, it'll sharpen back up, I'm pretty sure. But it's just beautiful, at least in my opinion. And of course you have your loaded chamber indicator on the barrel. And this isn't really an indicator as a viewport. And the sights can be modified, M&P sights can be modified to fit this. And I think this is a great improvement on the M&P sights because this is a little bit more of an aggressive shelf. But the 3-dot picture is very much like an M&P, very in your face, if you will. Nice, bright, white dots. And then you have your striker indicator right here, which goes away when you pull the trigger. So, yeah, that's a little feature. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't really have an opinion. It's just a thing. So, other than that, of course, you don't have ambidextrous slide stops, but you do have cutouts for a safety. And I believe in Turkey they have what's called the SAS, which is stands for whatever, but I'm guessing the last S. This being the SA, I'm guessing the SAS, the last S, stands for safety. And you have these cutouts just like the original M&P, so that's very interesting. Now, let's go ahead and look at the inside of this pistol and look at the difference in the design. Okay, just like any other M&P pistol, you lock it back, rotate that down, send it home, and there you go. You don't have a disengagement lever where you don't have to pull the trigger. You just pull the trigger. I think I agree with them that it's basically useless. Who cares? Be safe with the gun and you don't have anything to worry about. As you can see here, you have basically the same thing as the M&P, the general design. The sear system, striker system, and even the locking block system, or the locking system. So you have the same trigger system relatively. This is a little bit more beefy, and it works a little bit differently than the M&P. Instead of having a piece that comes under and pushes it up from the front, you have this little piece that comes down and pulls it down and pushes it with this ramp. So that's basically all it does. And pretty simple. But the general design is the same. The pins are in the same place. It comes out pretty much the same. And I think it's just a more reliable design. Everything is just more beefy here. Now, from what I was told at SHOT Show, Apex can, you can put Apex triggers in this, and they've done some work with them apparently. So yeah, you have some options there, but I'm not sure about this area right here. So I have not detail stripped this pistol, but I'm guessing this is going to be different, just different enough to not really take an M&P trigger system. But the triggers, you can probably put an M&P trigger in there. Just going to keep the trigger bar and this locking system. This might actually be the same as the M&P, but who knows. Now let's go on to the slide. So here you have the slide. Of course, pretty much everything looks the same here. It's well Cerakoted. And here you have a steel guide rod, just like the M&P, and a flat wire spring. And then you have your barrel. And that's pretty much it. Looks pretty much the same, hasn't been cleaned. Standard rifling. Now what you'll notice is the rifling is a lot more shallow than the M&P. And I will tell you, cleaning this gun versus cleaning the M&P, this is a tight barrel. The rifling feels a lot more tight, and that's probably just because it's closer. The lands and grooves are closer to each other than on the M&P. So one thing I want you to notice is, you may not notice it on camera, but right about here where this little ring is, right here, that faint ring, it thickens just a tad. it thickens a little bit, and that's probably for the locking with the slide. So the barrel thickens a little bit right at this point, and you may be able to pick that up. Yeah, you can just see that faint little line right there, and it goes all the way across. You can see the barrel gets a little thicker here. It's a little bit thicker than the M&P barrel, and that's probably just from this area getting bigger, and maybe, I don't think it really helps with durability, probably just the lockup process, but that's just my conclusion of it. But very well polished feed ramp when it's not so dirty. But very good barrel, very interesting design, but as you can see, this finish is flaking off right here. Kind of interesting. Not sure what that's all about. Okay, now under the barrel, as you can see here, after 500 rounds of NATO ammo, this is the wear on the slide. That's it. And that's really the only area that's wearing like that, except for this right here, which I guess makes sense for where it's at. But pretty much everything's the same as the M&P. They kept a lot of this, the M&P intact, but I think that they made it more robust in the important areas. In my opinion, the MC28 is just an upgraded M&P. It's not a knockoff, it's not a clone. This is an upgrade. I mean, the trigger bar is more robust, it is much more stiff, and all the springs on this pistol are tight. The striker spring is tight, and also the recoil spring is tight, and even the trigger spring is tight at first. But once you actually shoot it and get these friction points down, this thing lightens up considerably. Okay, now that we're in the subject of springs, let's go ahead and talk about the trigger. So the trigger on this very much reminds me of a Glock. When I first shot this pistol at SHOT Show and I first got this pistol, I really was not a fan of it. This thing was tight. It was it had a lot of over travel. It had a very stiff wall. It was just pretty unpleasant. But now, after about 500 rounds, everything's changed. It was really interesting. It very much reminds me of the Glock trigger, but if it was single action instead of having a constant pressure all the way through. It goes to the wall, and then boop, and that's it. And then the reset is not that loud for those of you who care. I never really cared about the reset. I had no problems with it, but it's just right there. And then it goes again. That's not a very long reset for those of you who care. But, you know, some people will whine that it's not right here. But, yeah, I don't see a problem with it. It's a very smooth trigger pull. Basically, I'm getting about a 5.5 pound to 6.5 pound trigger pull. It's very hard to get it because of the shape of the trigger and get a consistent pull on it, but that's what I'm getting right now. And it's very smooth. It's like, yeah, it's like the Glock trigger, but if it didn't have constant pressure all the way. So, yeah, I really like this. Okay, I think I'm just going to wrap it up by saying, you know, shooting NATO ammo through this pistol is very interesting. Usually you feel a little bit more of a pop out of other pistols, but this one controls it very well. It's actually a softer shooter than the M&P when I was comparing them side by side. But it's a very interesting design, how they basically re-engineered the M&P and they took away things that weren't really necessary, gave it their own flair, and simplified some things, but kind of left a couple of issues, if you will. Like if you watch my initial review, the area inside the magwell here, this little area, this little shelf that you can barely see there, you know, that catches on the magazine right here. When it's trying to go in, it can catch it if you're not putting it in straight. So that could be a little issue for some people, but that's only happened to me once. And, you know, I haven't had an issue since, and I literally forgot about it. So I don't really consider it an issue now, but, you know, it's just some things to be considered and to be honest about. So anyways, let me know what you think, and thanks a lot for watching, and visit zenithfirearms.com and check out some of their other stuff. This thing's going for $250, and the compact version is going for like $230. And for me, that's an excellent value. But anyways, you guys have a good one. Thanks a lot for watching.